Hello? Is there anybody in there? Just nod if you can hear me. Is there anyone at home? Come on now, I hear you're feeling down. Well, I can ease your pain. Get you on your feet again. Relax, it's just a little pinprick. There'll be no more. But you may feel a little sick. Can you stand up? I do believe it's working good. That'll keep you going through the show. Come on, it's time to go. The child is gone, the dream is dead, and I am comfortably numb. Those are lyrics to the song Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd, a song in which he wrote about heroin and the possession it has over your body. The abuse and addiction to opioids such as heroin, morphine, and other prescription pain relievers is a serious global problem that affects the health, social, and economic welfare of all societies. Earlier this month, my family experienced a tragedy. We lost my cousin, Sabrina, to a drug overdose. She lost her uphill battle to heroin addiction like many before her. Her and I were the same age, 20 years old. I am sad to say that Sabrina is and will not be the only teenage or young adult who has the same issue with opiate abuse. And it's estimated that according to drugabuse.gov, in America's addiction to opioids, that between 26.4 million and 36 million people abuse opiates worldwide, with an estimated 2.1 million people in the United States suffering from substance use disorders related to prescription opioid pain relievers, and an estimated 467,000 addicted to heroin. But the image of a young heroin addict collapsed in a filthy, dark alleyway is obsolete. Today, the young addict could be 25, 18, even 12 years old with no obvious signs of addiction. You may think that heroin and opiate abuse is just the stuff that you see in movies, but you'd be wrong. We don't hear about heroin and opiates as much as, say, marijuana or party drugs, but I can assure everyone that they are still here and the issue is growing more rapidly than most can even imagine. However, though, I am glad to see that in my survey I evaluated from my classmates that over 50% of you agree with me that opiate abuse is a growing issue in our teenage and young adult population. I'm hopeful that after listening to my speech, my classmates will want to help those who engage in prescription or opiate drugs or help someone who may be suffering. If you choose to hear me out, you'll see not only the widespread devastation the substance is bringing, but also what can be done to help decrease the numbers, these expanding numbers. But to really understand opiates and their addictive qualities, we have to first look at what it does to your body and how someone can suddenly find themselves addicted to opiates. So opioids, according to Webster Dictionary, are medications that act on opioid receptors in both the spinal cord and brain to reduce the intensity of pain signal perception. So according to drugabuse.gov in their article titled Opiates, written in 2014, they state that in addition to relieving pain, the opioids also activate reward regions in the brain, causing the euphoria or the high that underlines the potential for misuse and addiction. And chemically, these are very similar to heroin because heroin is synthesized from morphine, heroin was synthesized from morphine as a pharmaceutical in the late 19th century. But what opiates do is that they attach and activate opioid receptor proteins, which are found on nerve cells in the brain, spinal cord, gastrointestinal tract, and other organs in the body. And therefore, you can see that heroin and pain relievers affect the entire body one by one. But why do opiates have such an addicting quality to them? The dependence arises as a product of physiological adaptations to the long-lasting drug. Addiction encompasses other changes to brain activity and is notable by chronic drug searches and drug use despite the negative outcomes. And according to teens.drugabuse.gov, how does someone become addicted to opiates? They are quoted saying that continuous opioid use changes the way that nerve cells work in the brain, and this happens even to people who have been taking the opioids for a long period of time to treat pain as prescribed by their doctor. The nerve cells grow used to having the opioids around so that when they're taken away suddenly, the person can have lots of unpleasant feelings and reactions. But you may be asking yourself, how does someone even become addicted to something like heroin? Where would you even begin? So, what I can say is that heroin addiction, in most cases, is derived from a use of prescription drugs. Once again, referencing drugabuse.gov in opiates, you see that the total number of opioid pain relievers prescribed in the United States has skyrocketed in the past 25 years. The number of prescriptions for opioids like hydrocodone and oxycodone have skyrocketed from 76 million in 1991 to 207 million in 2016, with the United States being the biggest consumer globally, and they're accounting for almost 100% of the world's total for hydrocodone. With prescription drugs becoming so much easier to get your hands on, opioids account for the greatest portion of the prescription drug abuse problem. When prescription drugs become too expensive or are not readily available, a lot of users turn to heroin for their similar highs, which can be even more fatal, because heroin abuse is dangerous both because of the drug's addictiveness, but also because of the substantial risk of overdosing. And according to drugabuse.gov in their article titled America's Addiction to Opiates, the risk comes because of is compounded by the lack of the purity of the drug that's injected, and also a combination of the contamination of other drugs, such as fentanyl, which is a very potent prescription drug that's abused by itself. But now that you understand, what this drug is, we need to know what is done to stop this epidemic. So, how do we decrease addiction to opioids while still humanely and ethically treating the millions of Americans suffering from chronic pain? And how do we see to it that the addicts of heroin are not seen as hopeless cases? So back to drugabuse.gov's article, America's Addiction to Opiates. The NIDA has developed 2 online medical educational courses that are there for prescribing pain and managing patients who have abused 2 prescription drugs. And this is a great starting point in making sure that people who actually need the medication are getting the correct drugs, but also the correct dosage. So with teenagers and prescription drugs in your home, you start off with educating. You tell them what you have and what can happen to them if they take the drugs that are not prescribed to them. And then you keep track of your quantities, and you keep your cabinet locked, and properly dispose of the medications when they are no longer needed. This is not always easy when you have somebody in your household who is already addicted to opioids. Rehab is an obvious way to turn to help in fighting addiction, but most importantly, they need to know that their family is with them. Their family and loved ones are with them. Now, the behavior of an addict can make it very easy to want to write them off from the family reunion, but they need to know that they have a support system behind them. And I am a firm believer that knowledge is the first step to change, and one can only hope that I aided in educating you on what opiates are, how people become addicted, and how it branches, and lastly, what can be done in help to lower the fatalities these drugs have racked up, and that you too will want to bring awareness to this rapidly growing issue, because these drugs are nothing more than hell disguised as heaven. And do not let you or a loved one become comfortably numb. The steps we take today are the changes we see tomorrow. Thank you.